don't gain, they fight in vain. Show them what you can do. Show them what you can do. Please show them what you can do. I said, in this parade, please wave your grades at the brave who fight for you. If you don't gain, they fight in vain. Show them what you can do. Show them what you can do. Please show them what you can do. You make this parade a mere charade if you're marching just for fun. Our troops must feel your thanks for real before the marching is done. They know side by side you can match their stride to the drum beat and the brass, but they're not impressed with you unless you can match their stride in class. This may not sound too diplomatic, but I cannot be more emphatic as I tell you, it's problematic when you do less than your best. Especially when it's because you put your brilliance on pause for the mere peer applause it draws from a so-called friend doing less. Quit playing, I'm saying, you know that you are great, and we know it, so show it. Don't make our heroes wait. In this parade, please wave your grades at the brave who fight for you. If you don't gain, they fight in vain. Show them what you can do. Show them what you can do. Please show them what you can do. For those of you who already do the things that make us proud, your nation in appreciation says thanks to you out loud. Your schoolmates should imitate the way you tap your potential. Let me try to convince them why their effort is essential. Our men and women in uniform, before, during, and after Desert Storm, always perform above the norm, anywhere and everywhere on the planet. They need to follow our heroes' lead, but they cannot lead if they cannot read. Allow me, please, to plant this seed. Don't take freedom for granted. I'm serious, I'm furious to see U.S. schools behind. Remove the clatter, it's just a matter of our making up our minds. In this parade, please wave your grades at the brave who fight for you. If you don't gain, they fight in vain. Show them what you can do. Show them what you can do. Please show them what you can do. We believe in you, warriors protect you to do what you must to rise. Please do your part. Please start before another warrior dies. In this parade, please wave your grades at the brave who fight for you. If you don't gain, they fight in vain. Show them what you can do. Show them what you can do. Please show them what you can do. They sacrifice for you. Show them what you can do. Please show them what you can do.
Good afternoon and welcome to Wave Your Grades on KUAW.org, the academic patriotism program that is dedicated to veterans and serious secondary scholars. I am your announcer, DeQuay Wilson. Now here is our host, civilian urban educator, Carl Boyd.
Thank you so very, very much, DeQuay Wilson. DeQuay is our producer, engineer, and co-host on Wave Your Grades. And as our announcer indicated to you that I am a civilian, I have three brothers who served, as a matter of fact. My oldest brother was a Marine, next to him was an airman, and next to him was a soldier.
Wow.
This afternoon, we are privileged to have in studio a true veteran, and as a matter of fact, he is the chair of our social justice ministry at Friendship Baptist Church. His name is Minister Rocky Walker. And as far as nomenclature is concerned, so that I make the introduction properly, how should we address proper title for Brother Rocky Walker?
I appreciate the titles. I have several, but I'm not big on titles. So, and you are absolutely a friend of mine. Rocky is more than sufficient.
Praise God. But in fact, Rocky has a background in the military, and the program is for those who have served and or those who are serving. Before we get into what might be a little obvious for those who are watching as well as listening, we might want to talk a little bit about something called the vote. But
yes.
Before we do that, let me ask Minister Rocky Walker,
to give us a little bit of your, as a matter of fact, you might want to even go before your service. So tell us something about your background.
Well, Carl, first of all, thank you for the honor of
Oh,
being here.
my
It's
honor.
a big operation we got going on here, and I'm very impressed. A little bit about myself. It's interesting. This studio, what we're in right now, is located just a few miles from where I grew up on
Wow.
the east side of Kansas City in Vineyards. I grew up in the Vineyards, and just a thriving, amazing place and time to grow up in the 70s and the early 80s. And then it's not the same now, which is heartbreaking. I left Kansas City right after graduating high school. As you alluded to, I joined the United States Army. I spent almost 25 years
Wow.
in the Army. I came in as a private
Yes, sir.
E1, and I retired as a field grade officer, as a major. I had a couple of different career paths within the military. I started out as an air traffic controller.
Okay.
Then I was a field artillery officer. And last, and I spent most of my time as an attack helicopter pilot, an Apache pilot. I served in combat in Desert Storm
Wow.
and Desert Shield, and trained for a couple of other combat missions and trained a lot of men to go
Yes,
fight
sir.
and do a lot of heroic things for our country. And it has given me, and then I travel the world, both as a soldier and as a civilian, because I've been retired for quite a while now. And then I had a second career in healthcare
Yes,
in
sir.
New York City. And so I consider the second time I went to combat was when the coronavirus came out. I was working at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City,
Yes, sir.
very much like being on the front lines of combat. It literally was probably more deadly, and I was on the front lines of Desert Storm, but I saw much more death with the coronavirus than I saw on the battlefield
Yes, sir.
in the desert. And so I have both of those experiences in my life that really elevates my appreciation for life itself.
Yes, sir.
But most importantly, it elevates my appreciation, which was already at a high level, but my appreciation for the way that God protects, the way that God delivers,
Yes, sir.
the way that God moves. And some of the things just don't make sense. And the Bible literally says his wisdom is higher than our wisdom and his ways are higher than our ways. So for those things that I've seen that I don't quite understand and maybe will never understand, I still trust God. I trust him in
Praise
everything.
God. As a matter of fact, when you think about, you're taking us back to when you were in the community as a young person and giving us an appreciation for service, not only combat, but also medical and health. And I have the privilege of knowing you as Minister Rocky Walker. How did that career path take place, and was it a career as much as a calling?
So that's interesting. It's both.
Yes, sir.
And I've been in ministry I my whole life. That started when I grew up in Vineyard. But it was informal ministry.
Okay.
Very much informal, but I have preached sermons, I've taught classes, I've done what was needed when there was no one else to do it, and and in a way I kind of ran from my calling. And I will share this with you publicly. I was concerned about making money.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
and I've always been a very good speaker.
Yeah.
And people try to equate that to, oh, you should be a preacher. And I'm like, no. Just because you're a good speaker doesn't make you a preacher.
Okay.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yes, sir.
But the real truth is, I couldn't see how I could make the kind of money that I wanted to make doing that. And now here I am on nobody's payroll.
Yes, sir.
And I am in formal ministry, and I am doing as well or maybe better financially than ever before.
My God.
And it's and I talk about God's ability to deliver. It's almost embarrassing to me that I didn't trust God earlier in my life. And so when I see young people, Carl, that have the courage to give their life to God and their vocation and their abilities to God at a young age, the Bible says do your work in the daytime, because soon nighttime cometh when no man can work.
Right.
And that's literal and it's figurative. And I still have a lot left in the tank. There's a lot I can do for the
No doubt
kingdom.
about it. No doubt about
But
it.
I don't have the energy I had when I was 21.
Okay.
You know, running through those, whatever the hoops the Army had me going
Wow.
through. And so I am encouraged that I bring a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience, and a lot of different skill
Absolutely.
sets
Yes,
to
sir.
ministry. But I do, again, I really admire folks like yourself who've been doing this. You've made it a lifetime service. And so now my ministry has flipped, and it is no longer informal. It is absolutely formal. It
Yes,
is
sir.
announced. And I want to be as professional and as proficient at this as I was at flying helicopters, as I was at working in the hospitals, I was at doing any other things I ever done. And there's a real satisfaction of knowing that I'm really employing everything I have for the edification of God's kingdom, for the magnification of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior,
My Lord.
and for the glorification of God Himself.
Well, let me just say, and let me remind those of you who are listening to and or looking at Wave Your Grades, we have as our very special guest, Minister William Rocky Walker. And this is such a privilege for me, because you complement the program in a number of ways. One, of course, is in as much as the program is motivational for young people when they meet our veterans, heroes you didn't know were heroes, about which you will hear later. But also, you have a background in so many different areas that we can broach. It causes me to make the assumption that we can get you back another time to talk about a number of different issues, but our producer engineer, DeQuay Wilson, and our producer engineer intern, Heaven Hart, may join the conversation at any time.
Yes.
But let me just say to you that among the reasons that I am so appreciative of your being here is because you are precisely the guest that we want heaven to meet,
Yes.
because of what you have done and your, quote, optimism, if you will, about the future and in our young people. Where that is concerned, let me ask you this question, because you were talking about military, age 21, energy and aspirations. How do you see the evolution of service, particularly in ministry, from then until now? Are there differences? Things better, things worse, optimism versus pessimism, all of those kinds of things.
Service in the military or service for God?
Yes.
Yes.
In-
Service for the military, I'll take that one first because that's
Okay.
easy. I actually came in when I was 18 years old,
Okay.
and it was
Okay.
post-Vietnam Army, and
Man.
it was transitioning. And for the entire history of the United States, the military up until that point had been the strongest, the toughest,
Yes, sir.
the roughest, the meanest guy. That's the one that got the rank. And I said guy intentionally because wasn't a lot of girls
right,
in the
that's
military
right,
back
that's
then,
right.
ladies, I should say.
Yes, sir.
But right when I was coming in, it was transitioning to the smartest, the most resourceful.
Yes, sir.
I am the type of a hybrid that I fit both militaries. I could have done well in that rough, tough military,
Yes, sir.
but I also excelled in this new, let's use our brain first military.
Yes.
And it has totally switched to that now.
My God.
It's all brains over brawn.
Okay.
And it's a very, very professional force. It is an incredibly efficient force. I think, in fact, it's so efficient that it almost gets taken for granted how professional our men and women are of the United States military. So that's the transition that I got to see in front of my own eyes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
In service to our Lord and Savior,
Yes, sir.
I've, again, I was born in the mid-'60s. grew up in the 70s, sort of became a man in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is some things that I think are good and some things that I think are maybe an overcorrection. I think that it's good that we challenge belief systems. I think that's good. I think that subsequent generations different from what I was raised in, we're not afraid to say, hey, that doesn't make sense,
Okay.
and make it make sense. And that's good because God doesn't require us to shut our brains off when we receive Jesus as our Savior.
Yes.
It's not a sign of faith to not use your brain. Your brain's been given to you by God to use it. And so if it doesn't make sense, I'm a firm believer that God endorses a Socratic approach to Christianity. And so I like that we are no longer afraid to question what's happening. That's good. But I think it's an overcorrection in that in my time, we're so quick to dismiss the principles of God. We're so quick to dismiss what God says about it. Carl, it's literally we think the word of God is optional.
Ooh, my goodness.
It's not optional.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and I'm talking to myself on that too.
Yes, sir.
I'm part of this hypocrisy.
Yes, sir.
That I'm going to pick. One of my favorite stories is Benjamin Franklin. This is a real story. Back in whenever he was alive, his Bible started out that thick. And for anybody on the radio, I'm holding up my fingers and they're about 2 to 3 inches apart.
Yes, sir.
By the time he died, his Bible was about that thick. And now I'm down to about an inch or less than an inch. Because he literally cut out the parts of the Bible that he didn't like. That's a true story.
Imagine.
He literally cut it out.
Imagine.
So we say that with awe and shock and, but that's what we do literally.
Okay.
If it's something in the Bible we don't like,
sir.
we just don't do it. We
Yes,
just,
sir. That's very interesting that you
Yes.
said that, because there are those of us who are picky about what we criticize.
Yeah.
And I am more likely to criticize something I don't think I do than to add to that criticism some of those things of which I might find myself guilty. So one of the reasons this is apropos for our minister Rocky this afternoon as guest is because he happens to be a co-Sunday school teacher, and it happens to be the class of which I am a part, so that it is appropriate from my standpoint, because I can ask directly how this fits with that. So let me tell you something that will not surprise those who are seeing us as well as hearing us. If you look at the t-shirt I'm wearing, you probably wouldn't have a hard time guessing what I want to talk about this afternoon. But KUAW, Heaven, this t-shirt was bestowed upon me by Minister Rocky Walker because he happens to be the chairman of our social justice ministry at Friendship Baptist Church, where our leader is Reverend James A. Terrence Jr. Can you talk about that some, please?
Yes. The name of our social justice ministry is Neighbors Keepers.
Yes, sir.
Social justice ministry. A name that we put a lot of work and energy into, and Carl was a big part of that deduction that we landed with that name, because that's what we want to do. We want to be a social justice minister. First, I want to just give a big shout out to my pastor,
Thank
pastor. He came to me with this idea.
Wow.
It's on his heart, but if you don't know Reverend Terrence, he is a big deal. He's highly sought after.
Yes.
Because of how
Yes.
amazing he is, not just preaching the messages on Sunday mornings, but the way he conducts his life, the way he built this church, and now he has a reputation that precedes himself, much bigger than the church or the community, and he's getting pulled in so many different directions.
Oh, no doubt.
And he just didn't have the time to
Oh.
pour into social justice that is equal to his passion for it.
Yes, sir.
And God willing, thank God, for whatever reason, he saw something in me. And he asked me to do this and be his face and to kick this ministry off, and gave me the leverage to bring in whoever I want. And Carl was one of the first people I thought of.
Oh my Lord!
And
You're very kind.
I'm very wise because
Well,
you are an amazing asset to the program.
I am blessed because of what I learned from the young people, and you and I will agree upon that because you have some dynamic young people in Neighbors Keepers.
Yes.
And of course, we repeat it, and we don't mind repeating that we're both blessed to have the leadership of Pastor
Yes.
James A. Terrence Jr.
Absolutely.
from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Yes.
Quick story. When I was doing my 65 trips a year, my blessing was that I have worked with educators in all but 3 states, Rhode Island, Delaware, and Hawaii. So I have worked with educators in all. The friendliest place I've ever been was Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Wow, really?
Yes, I say that, and I was saying it before I met Pastor James A. Terrence Jr. And one testimony that really speaks to his dedication was how much Friendship Baptist Church was able to accomplish during the pandemic.
Mm.
And while Zooming and separate seats and all kinds of precautions, mask wearing, all of that was taking place, yet Friendship Baptist Church was a very active, very dedicated church under his leadership. So both you and I say thank you, Pastor James A. Terrence Jr. So very, very much.
I just
And-
want to add one thing to that because
Please.
you're dead on. I lived prior to coming back home to Kansas City 3 years ago. I was in New York City for almost 20 years.
Yes.
Loved it, and but I was excited about coming home, and this was home, so I'd always visit home when I was in New York. And there was another church that a lot of my friends went to, and I would visit the church with them. And this was, of course, pre-COVID. And so I always knew when I came back to Kansas City, I was going to join that church. Well, I came back post-COVID, and this church, was struggling because of the pandemic, struggling mightily. And when I visited the church, now it wasn't the same.
Okay.
COVID really did a number on
sir.
this church, and it's so unfortunate because it's a really good church.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I just didn't want to be a part of that struggle, and I was like, I'm lost, Carl. I'm like, where am I going to go? And so some friends of ours, we put together a list of 8 churches, and
Wow.
Friendship was number 1 on that list. But here's the thing about Friendship that made me want to go there first. I was hearing about Friendship not just in religious circles, like, oh, Pastor Terrence preaches a great sermon, but I was hearing him in all the other circles of my life. In the financial world, I was hearing things like, well, Friendship, those people, they know how to handle their money very well. In the business circles, that church understands, how to do things the right way. In social circles, that church, I was hearing all these amazing things about Friendship Baptist Church, not just in religious circles. So
Praise God.
it made them the first church that I wanted to visit on that list of 8 churches. And when I visited Friendship, I've never checked out those other 7 churches.
Wow.
The first visit, I'm like, this is home. And so
Praise
thanks
God.
to not only Pastor Terrence, but the entire Friendship Church for just the love that exudes when you walk in that door. It is appropriately named, and it is amazing opportunity and blessing for me.
Hello, Bernice Taylor, and congratulations on your ministry as it relates to entrepreneurial expertise. So that's just one of the things. And as we get an opportunity to talk, we're going to talk about several more. KUAW and or Heaven, any questions for Minister Rocky Walker?
Not at this present time. No.
Okay. And one of the things that is important is for us to indeed acknowledge the dynamism of the members of the social justice ministry, Neighbors Keeper, by name. And of course, you and I have already talked, but will you speak to those who are in the ministry and why they add so much?
I would love to do that. So what we have landed upon, well, first I was looking for best qualified people. And it's important when you're building something to not over expand yourself, and to and that can mean that can have a lot of different meanings. So first thing I was looking for was quality. So Dr. Lester Blue,
Yes.
yours-
Absolutely.
yourself, Trina Weekly were the first people that I wanted to bring into the group, because I knew each of you personally. I knew how you operated, and we had to build something. And
Praise God.
when Pastor Terrence asked me to do this, I said two things. I said, I'm awesome. I'm so happy about it. But I also said, I don't even know how to do it.
Oh,
So we have to figure
yes,
out how
you
to do
do.
this. So
Yes, you do.
I needed some builders.
Mm.
And I knew how you guys operated, and I'm like, okay, that's a team that we can build something with. Quickly, we deduced that we needed some youth in the group. And
Absolutely.
Trina was the one that came up with that. She said, we need a young person's opinion.
That's
And
good.
she was so right about that. And so we all racked our brains, and Deja Thornton's name came up. And
Absolutely.
immediately everyone said, yes, we want Deja. And so we asked Deja,
A
and she
remarkable young lady.
remarkable, many talents, as is everyone on the team.
Yeah.
Deja's kind of funny because she comes off as being quiet,
Yes.
but she's really
Ooh,
dynamic and powerful.
Yes,
So
sir.
that she brings a lot to the table. That's same thing can be said about Trina also.
Yes.
You're not quiet, and neither is Dr. Blue, but you guys are so dynamic, and you bring so much to the table. And then we realized that we were sort of top heavy in age still,
Yes.
and we needed more youth, and so we were actively looking for one other person, and we were actually looking for a young man, and we checked several young men, and for valid reasons, and I respect their reasons.
Yes.
They they wisely said, I can't commit to this right now.
Thank you.
And then
Thank you.
I was on a Baptist convention in Missouri, and I watched Aaliyah Pickett in action all week. And I'm like, wait a minute. She's
Absolutely.
perfect. If she
Yes,
wants
sir.
to do this, she's perfect. So we approached her. Well, I brought it to the team, and the team said yes. And so I approached her.
Without a doubt.
And she didn't hesitate. Now, the thing about Aaliyah that's amazing is she's a full-time college student right now in Jackson, Mississippi. But yet she still
Yes,
is
sir.
available to us via Zoom. And she actually functions as our secretary. And she does all of our automation, anything to do with communications. She's our person for that. So she brings special skill set. You bring a historical perspective that is unique in that you have been in social justice for longer than I've been alive. No, don't cut me off. I'm talking about you now. Let me keep talking. You're gonna try to cut me off. Nope. I'm still talking. And so your expertise is just so appreciated. And then Dr. Blue, for anyone who doesn't know him, he is an amazing wealth of knowledge
Without a doubt.
on everything. It's incredible.
Isn't that interesting?
He just yes.
Just name a topic.
Yeah, name a topic and he will tell you everything about it.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
and then we sort of talked already about the skill sets that I bring to the team. So my job as the leader of this ministry is just to keep us focused.
Yes, sir.
Because there is so much brilliance, so much creativity, and I get to just kind of run back and forth between us and the pastor, and he kind of guides us, and so far we've been making a lot of wonderful things happen.
Without a doubt. And when we come back from the break, then I certainly want to focus on your T-shirt, because this is an important time. The reason I was getting ready to interrupt is because when you mentioned age, I noticed that when you talked about Ben Franklin, that heaven was about to ask me how it was when Ben Franklin was doing what he was doing.
Thought they were classmates.
But we will certainly come back to that after this mid-program break. Here's
I want to remind our 7th through 12th grade students that you can win a monetary award from our sponsoring organization. Yes, we do say organization on purpose, with purpose, Stoots for Boots. Your essay title will be Heroes You Know You Didn't Know Were Heroes. Your content will identify a veteran at your school who can be absolutely anyone, a custodian, coach, teacher, absolutely anyone. If your essay is chosen and submitted by an adult who gives you permission to read it on this Waive Your Grades program, you will be awarded a monetary prize. Please send inquiry or entry to stootsforboots@gmail.com. That is STOOTSFORBOOTS, stootsforboots@gmail.com. Now, back to our host, Carl Boyd.
Thank you so very, very much, to Quay Wilson. Now, I want to ask Louis George Walker a question. And Brother Louis George Walker, did you just happen to walk in at this time, Brother Walker, or was that coincidental or providential?
Well, you know, a lot of times that's what's that God's way of remaining anonymous. He makes coincidences happen. You know.
Well, I want to introduce Louis George Walker to our very special guest, Minister.
Okay.
Minister Walker.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Absolutely. And
yeah. So, what do you got?
Louis George Walker is the founder of KUAW.org.
Oh, okay.
And he will tell you what the initials stand for and let those who are with us know how they can access this and other KUAW programs. Here is Mr. Louis George Walker.
All right. Thank you very much, Carl. This is KUAW Radio, which stands for Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom. KUAW is a project of the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center and the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. And you're listening to us right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. You can also pick us up on online radio at Get Me Radio, Online Radio Box, My Radio Tuner, and Radio Garden. You can also go to www.kuaw.org. And if you have a smart speaker, tell your Google or Amazon speaker to play KUAW Radio, and we'll come up on that. You can pick us up on Fire Stick and on Roku. So we're all over the internet worldwide, and that's KUAW Radio. And we thank you for listening to this show and the other shows that are broadcast on KUAW Radio.
Thank you so very, very much.
Oh,
very
one
impressive.
thing. One thing. You also
Yeah,
can listen on KOJH, broadcasting out of the 18th and Vine area at 100.5 FM.
Okay.
Thank you so very, very much. Louis George Walker is resident genius, obvious, but he also has a significant work ethic, and he will be talking about what young people are doing. He conducts robotics competitions and
Yes.
science fairs and all of those kinds of things. So we appreciate Brother Walker, and let us get back now to Brother Walker. Minister William, isn't it? William Rocky Walker.
Yes.
And wanted to get into, this is October 26th, 2024. So we only have one more Saturday before the election. And Minister Walker, there are many of us. You were talking about age. March 3rd was my 82nd birthday. And when I think that this is, for me, seriously speaking, the most important election in which I have participated, can you tell us why, for Neighbor's Keeper, this is such an important topic, such an important ministry?
It is incredibly important. And it's interesting that you say that it's the most important election in your lifetime and you give your age.
Yes, sir.
We were speaking to a group of young people, and there was a young man, I believe he was about 27 years old, and he said that he's tired of hearing that. He's being told that in every election cycle. And the fact of the matter is, it is true every election cycle.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it's more and more true every election cycle, and this one is more true than it's ever been in my lifetime.
Yes, sir.
Because the disparity between the orientation of the different candidates is scary to me.
Wow.
It's absolutely scary. It's not even close. It's not a matter of, hey, this is my opinion of how we should do it. It's more a matter of, you know, we're going to go this direction and they're going to go that direction. And,
Yes, sir.
and it's not even close. And but you talk about the young people. It's very important to me because the young people are being, especially young people of color, are being systemically trained, programmed
Wow.
to not want to vote and to think that it's their decision. I'll give you a story that, and I'll try to be brief, but I was on a walkthrough with Operation Breakthrough, an amazing operation
Yes,
within
sir.
this city. And I was touring these stellar students, and they were, it's what they call a capstone project. And each of these different classrooms have built something from the ground up. They've created out of nothing, ex nihilo. And they make this thing work, and then they brief you on it. And so I was especially impressed with one project, and I looked up, there was 4 young black men, and these aren't just 4 young black high school students. These are scholars. These are young men who are exceptionally wise and are going places. Now, I will say this was just prior to Kamala Harris taking over for
Okay.
Joe Biden. This was just prior to that. But in the middle of that, I just stopped. I asked them for forgiveness. I stopped them in their presentation, and I said to them,
Wow.
I know you're not old enough, but if you were old enough, would you participate in the election? I don't really care who you'd vote for, but
Right.
would you vote?
Right.
Without hesitation, Carl, all 4 of those young men said no. And instead of like trying to shame them and make them feel bad, I understand the pressure that they're up against.
Yes.
They are being systemically shown or tried to be shown that your vote doesn't matter. The topics are confusing. Just anything, because there's power in a vote. There's a lot of power in that vote. And that's why so much energy is being put towards not letting them vote. You talk about rezoning, different municipalities, everything to separate and divide our vote.
That's right.
And to discourage our vote. So it's important if I know, I'm going to keep it personal. If I know this is going on, I can't be apathetic towards their apathy.
Wow.
The apathy toward the apathy is something that my generation cannot do.
That is something that we should definitely remember. And as a matter of fact, KUAW, our program producer and engineer and co-host, something that I have not had the occasion to do until we're now in this season of voting, and don't always say this and should. Louis George Walker just left the room, but we should make it clear the views and opinions shared on this program are not necessarily those of KUAW.org and their ownership or participants. That is important. The other thing I would like to do now is slowly give the phone number 816-599-6893 in case someone wants to call in during our discussion this afternoon. 816-599-6893. And what made me think of that for our very, very special guest, Minister Walker, was if someone wants a ride to the polls, and for that matter, whatever we might be able to help them with, is it all right that they call the church or call a number or get in touch with us some way?
So right now, again, our amazing pastor, James A. Terrence Jr., has instituted a program within Friendship Baptist Church
Yes,
for
sir.
our members, and it's called Souls to the Polls. And it's literal. And what we are for sure at this point committed to is any adult, any senior adult over the age of 75 that wants a ride to the poll on election day, we are going to provide them a ride.
Yes, sir.
If once they contact us and they register themselves, we will do that. And when I say contact us, I'll just say me personally or anyone in our team, because we wear those vote shirts.
Yes.
And we're in the lobby before and after service every Sunday trying to see who needs a ride. Also, anyone with a disability at any age, again, member of the church that has a disability of any age, they also are eligible to register for a ride to the poll on election day, and that is what we are committed to, and we are because what we found is Jackson County. I have Jackson County numbers. Is a highly registered county.
Yes.
Well over 85% of every adult from age 18 to 80 in Jackson County, and I believe the number is much closer to 90% now.
Wow.
They're registered. We've done an amazing job of getting everyone registered.
Outstanding. And by the way, 816-861-3252. 816-861-3252 is the number at Friendship Baptist Church, and you offered that there might be other ways to contact us. What would you give as far as number or email or whatever it might be? Or is that sufficient, the church
Well, that'll
number?
be sufficient, and also if you're in attendance, again, we're at the tables before and after each service,
Yes.
and we're literally there to register people to vote. But let me continue with that, because that's the good news, that there's probably 90%
Yes,
of all
sir.
of Jackson County is registered to vote, but they're not coming to the polls. They're not coming. So the average voter turnout for election historically over the last couple of years has been about 12%. Now, we got 90% registered and 12% coming to vote. This most recent election on the stadium tax, we almost doubled that. We had about 25% show
Yes, sir.
up.
Yes,
But
sir.
that was an anomaly, because historically there is about 12% voter turnout. And in St. Louis County, it's worse. It's like 6 or 7%. Now, think about that, Carl. St. Louis and Jackson County are far and away the most populated counties of this state.
Yes, sir.
If we were just voting the ones that are registered, this state could probably be blue.
Now, the interesting thing about that is, and I don't have it in front of me, the number of stories we might be able to tell about very close votes and had X percentage indeed shown up, as you were saying, how much difference that could make. And let me, if I might, DeQuay and or Heaven, if you care to field the question. One of the things that we often talk about, I would more than you because I'm twice your age, but in terms of how we look at younger people, do you as younger people find that your peers are apathetic, suspicious, disenchanted? How do they feel at your age about this phenomenon called a national election?
At my age, most of my peers are hyped up. We are fired up. We're ready to vote.
Okay.
Especially when I talk to colleagues at work, when I talk to individuals in the community, or just people in my small circle. We're ready to vote. We know what is at stake. We are not nearly as old as you, but we are a lot older than Miss Heaven over here.
Yes, ma'am.
And we understand what is at stake. And we are not just concerned for ourselves, but we are also concerned for future generations. So we are ready to vote. And that's just from my view, from what I see.
Yes, ma'am. Heaven, would you like to weigh in? Heaven Hart, and you are still in school.
Yes, I
And
am.
you are matriculating at what college or university?
Drury University currently. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
I would say most of my peers, I feel like it's kind of mixed.
Okay.
Some are excited, some are very ecstatic about voting, and they're very adamant, spreading like, "Hey, are you registered to vote? You know, you should get registered to vote." And then some are kind of on the fence.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
And I
ma'am.
think it's a lot, like you said, it's just the media, you know, a lot of things that we see kind of deters us. And I say us because I'm on the fence.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. Mainly, I think it's because just it's always so much going on in the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
just our history. As you learn our history. My age range, you really, if you learn any of your history, it's really from your parents or your family, because it's really not really taught to us in schools or anything like that. And then what is taught to us in schools is really about like slavery, not how we came out of slavery, not how
Yes.
And then a lot of the times
Yes.
I hear that a lot of these things that we get taught in school aren't accurate either. So it's like misinformation in the media, misinformation in schools. It's like what are trusted sources you can go to get accurate information. I just feel like when you compare the United States to other countries,
Yes, ma'am.
and where they're at, just socially, environmentally, we have so much freedom, which a lot of our citizens
Ooh.
love,
Okay.
but it's like you said, what's at stake? When we utilize our freedom and we have all these extra choices and things to choose from, because that's what we have in America. We have all these things constantly distracting us, constantly fighting for our attention.
Thank you.
I feel like other countries have it set up to where they have censorship and they have certain things to where you can't do certain things, and a lot of us look at that and we're like, oh no, we like to be able to do what we want to do when we want to do it. But a lot of those times, if you look, it's some reasons behind why they allow their citizens to do certain things and why they don't allow their citizens to do certain things. So, I don't know. I feel like we could learn a little more from other places, but also just I don't know. I just feel like I'm on the fence because it's the fact that we even had to fight for a right to vote.
Ooh.
The fact that there had to even be a constitution to address like all are created equal. Like what's understood, I feel like shouldn't need to be explained, because then once you explain it on paper, then you get to figure out the reading between the lines. How do you contracts where people you kind of find loopholes and ways to not really do what the Constitution says we're supposed to do. Everybody's supposed to be created equally, but do we get really treated equally? Are we made to feel equal? Can we really trust those that are supposed to serve and protect us? Just basically like what we see on the media with cops and different things.
Minister Rocky. Go ahead.
So many layers. I don't know.
Okay, Minister Rocky Walker, please.
Before he responds, I want to say to Miss Heaven, it is because our ancestors had to fight. It is because our ancestors had to fight to escape slavery. It is because our ancestors had to fight for us to have the right to vote that we should get out and cast our vote. What is important, because yes, a lot of times politicians and whomever will pull the wool over your eyes and they'll try to convince you of one thing while really in mind that they have other agendas in mind. But what you have to do is, what we are all required to do, is research our candidates on both the local level and on the national level, and we have to vote for what is in our best interest. And I've heard my entire life, I'm 50 years old this year, I've heard my entire life that this is the most pressing election, that this is the most serious election of my lifetime. And I can say, I'm not quite as old as you, Mr. Boyd, but this is definitely the most serious election of my lifetime. So if you say it's the most serious election of your lifetime, then that means this is the most serious election of most of our lifetime. Most of us that are still currently living on this earth, in this country. We have to be aware of what those candidates that are running, that are stand for. Now, Brother Walker, I didn't know that the numbers for registered voters versus turnout voters was so disparaging. I did not realize that.
Without a doubt.
But it is, when you do not vote, you are actually voting as well. So if you want your voice to heard, if you want your voice to be heard, if you want your politicians to stand up for you, you have to get out and vote for those politicians who will do just that. If you do not vote, then you really cannot complain when things don't go the way that you think that they should go. You have to research your candidates and get out and cast your votes. Our ancestors didn't shed blood for nothing. They shed blood for our ability to do this, and we need to take advantage of that opportunity.
Minister, please, Minister Rocky Walker.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Both of you for what you had to say.
Yes, right in that microphone.
Perspective is everything. Okay? Perspective is everything. So I'm going to sort of recap and then I'm going to address. Okay? I talked
You can
about.
pull that mic around with you.
Is it? Am I? Okay. So I talked about the programming that is being directed towards our young people. And that's a big fancy word, but it really doesn't mean anything.
Wow.
But what Heaven described
Come on.
is the programming to the T. You articulated exactly what's going on. And DeQuay, right? Yes. Okay. DeQuay, you described a perspective that people your age and older, it's going to be very personal for us. Okay? But the people younger than us, even though they know that's true, they don't feel the same energy that we feel with it, and they're not wrong for that. So historically, when I was I was alive, but I wasn't old enough to know what was going on. We were winning the revolution. Okay? When I say we, I mean black people. Mm-hmm. And we think that, I always thought that our victory died when Martin Luther King was fatally shot. It was 3 months later when Bobby Kennedy got shot that it died. And it started when President Kennedy was shot. And then when Malcolm X was shot. When those 4 guys were all shot, we stopped trying, especially as black men. And nothing, I think people were afraid for their lives, legitimately so. And so everyone, then we had that passion here. But that revolution that we were winning, guess who it was being led by? It was being led by students. It was being led by young people. And the people that stopped that revolution in its tracks, now they're determined to not ever let that revolution even get that close again. So guess who they target? Students, young people. And guess how they do it? We overload. You said it before I could say it. We overload them with misinformation. So much so that the passion you feel and I feel and you feel and you know that it's true, but you don't feel that passion because you got all these other things and now we're gonna make everybody look bad and then make you apathetic. It's like, and make you think that not voting is some sort of protest, but not voting is in fact a vote. And you're the one that's being targeted, not all young people that look like you. And so we have to, I can't talk to you in terms that make sense to me and expect them to make sense to you. That's why we have young people on our team, because we have to be able to have what a term that I'm not the originator of, but I'm certainly a proponent of, is a transgenerational conversation. And we've got to be able to talk to you in your language. That's why we have 2 young people on our team that are very passionate about this, and they're able to articulate. We were trying to figure out how to communicate and just how to get out the vote thing, and we were like stumped by it. And our young Aaliyah, the youngest person on our team, she says, "Why don't we make a TikTok video?" It was an amazing, and they just did it. They made a TikTok video. They made a TikTok video, and we aired it in the sanctuary. Everybody loved it. It's on our website, on our church website now.
And let me say this, because it's interesting that you mentioned media. And I just want to talk a moment about April 5th, 1968, April 5th. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated April 4th, 1968. April 5th, fewer than 24 hours later, headlines came up, who will be the next Dr. King? When I talk about the culpability of media, where media are concerned, they guide the negative. Now, therefore, they were suggesting that a major leader had been assassinated, stop the revolution, start over. Ossie Davis made a speech, brothers and sisters, we have lost a leader. He was on page 3. let us turn to page 4 and keep going. But the way that we have been learned to conduct something that might be referred to as a revolution is to observe one particular charismatic leader with whom we may or may not agree. No, we are a people. And one of the reasons your generation is so important to us is because I find that your generation speaks more of we than I,
Yes.
than my generation did.
Yes.
And generating that conversation, Minister Walker, when we think about young people, and by whatever cliche we might offer a nomenclature, you don't know how important you are to the dialogue just in what you have said on this program on this day, because it is not just articulate, it is authentic.
Yes.
And we can draw from that. One of the things about being selected because of my age is because of my privilege having met so many young people as they come along. So I might be able to claim wisdom, but it's based upon those whom I follow who are younger than I. I can't believe we're at the end of the program. I need Minister Rocky to close it out with the promise that we will continue this, because this is so very important, and you guys have really made the program. But from your perspective, Minister Rocky Walker, again, sorry I took so long to get to this, how would you guide, direct in something that we might refer to as closing remarks? And here the ladies are ready to talk some more already, so we're going to continue this.
Well, certainly I'd be
Please.
honored to come back. But I will say this about the younger generation.
Yes.
I love their energy.
Wow.
Okay, the younger, so my generation, I think we kind of just didn't do much. And then this generation said, no, I'm going to do something.
Wow.
And there's a lot of I'm going to do something in this generation, and I love it. The problem is they don't have our wisdom.
See?
Sometimes their I'm going to do something is busy, but there's movement and there's progress. Movement is just that, it's just movement, but progress is progress. And I think that there needs to be a merging of the two. We need to give our wisdom, but we need to learn from their energy, because they are not sitting still. And that makes our future very bright if we could work together. And that's what I think is needed.
All right, before you go, DeQuay, I know that, please go ahead.
What they lack in wisdom, they have in courage. I want to say that.
Yes.
But also, they should be running for office, whether it's local office or what have you, because
Thank
that's how
you.
they make the change. But we are at that time. So I do want to thank our guests. I want to thank our listeners. And more importantly, I want to thank our co-producer, Ms.
Yes.
Heaven Hart, for joining us on your Stoots for Boots Wave Your Grades program. We do come to you live every Saturday from 1 until 2 p.m. Central Standard Time from the I am tongue-tied. I got so much I want to spill out. From the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center right here in Kansas City, Missouri. I am your announcer, DeQuay Wilson. Now our host, Carl Boyd, will close with either Carl's commentary on academic patriotism or his daily message for students in honor of our veterans from his book, Morning Messages.
Thank you so very, very, very much. And thank you, Heaven Hart. Thank you, DeQuay Wilson. And a particular thank you for Minister William Rocky Walker. Neighbors, keepers. That is just, please promise to come back.
Yes.
And appreciate you so much.
Yes.
Each week, I will offer testimony and or a word for the day. So this is called Morning Messages,
Okay.
and this is for students in honor of troops. So I will offer today's message and close out the program. Today is October 26th. To students across the USA, your Stoots for Boots message for this day, October 26th. They carry the weight of your freedom. You carry the weight of their future. This is Wave Your Grades on KUAW.org. My name is Carl Boyd. Thank you to our very special guest. Thank you, ladies, and gracious God and wonderful Wanda. I'm on my way home.